Good evening, everyone. This is Elsie Kerns, your Chaos to Clarity coach. And Valerie, I see you're here. Thank you for joining us. And anybody has any questions, put them in the chat box. Tonight, Pam Younghans is with us because I have been truly struggling with this whole Saturn-Pluto alignment. And 1 minute I want to choose somebody out, and the next minute I want to sit down and cry. So it has been a true roller coaster ride. Mm-hmm. And Pam, I'd like you to talk a little bit about this, because I know Uranus is playing a big role in this, and anything can happen when Uranus is in the picture. And then we have this new moon on Friday, and there were some points that you made in your newsletter about that. So how about if you fill us in?
Okay. Well, I don't know if this is reassuring or not, but it really is a lot going on. You know, if you've been paying attention astrologically at all, yes, we had the Saturn-Pluto alignment, but there were also two other planets, the Sun and Mercury, and then the dwarf planet Ceres and the centaur Chariklo, and that was also wound up with a lunar eclipse. So 2 days before the exact alignment between all of these other planets, they were also involved in that lunar eclipse. And so, first of all, lunar eclipses have a big impact on our emotions. So yes, it's, almost 2 weeks ago. It'll be 2 weeks ago this coming Friday. But we're not out of eclipse season yet. Eclipse season really goes across both lunar cycles, or how many lunar cycles are involved in that have an eclipse involved in part of that cycle. So we're not yet out of the eclipse season. So if you're still feeling really emotional, the highs and lows, the irritations, but kind of almost grieving that can come up too. And that's the other thing I think is really important to know. I'm looking at everything that's been going on in January, and there is a ton of stuff. And it's not only, global political, there's a lot going on in individual lives. I had a friend whose mother found out at Christmas that she was ill, and as a part of Washington State's Death with Dignity Act, she took her life last week. So there's that. I have other friends who are having some health crises, and there's just a ton going on. So even if we're, no matter what's going on for each of us individually, and most of us, thank heavens, can't point specifically necessarily to a big issue that's going on. But I think we're learning so deeply how interconnected we really are. The whole thing about mass consciousness, it's a true thing. It's a real thing. And when so much is going on, and then, of course, from things as massive as the bushfires in Australia and the floods in Indonesia and the earthquake in Puerto Rico. And it's not that everything is bad. There can be some magic in these times, and yet Saturn and Pluto, when they come together, are known to create a fair amount of tension, and it's a whole kind of ball of wax. So that would be Saturn and Pluto by themselves, but then all the other planets that I mentioned as well. So don't feel bad if you're a little topsy-turvy. I think I put that in the journal this week, and the image of the world turned upside down. It does kind of feel that way. I think we can help ourselves. Like, I had an unexpected event happen yesterday, and I had to really stand back and say, okay, what is this? What's the bigger purpose of this? And to me, it's really relating to the Uranus energy coming up, because it was sudden, unexpected, and totally my fault. But just what's the purpose of this? And with Uranus especially, and this does relate to the new moon on Friday, we sometimes just have some kind of a shock. It doesn't have to be a huge, overwhelming thing, but it's got to be just enough to nudge us out of our comfort zone so that we see a bigger picture, so that we're more open to whatever might be next for us. So I'm getting kind of into the new moon energies now, but I really want to emphasize that this is a huge time, and I keep writing about self-care, and I know, Elsie, you've been posting a lot about self-care, and it's not just lip service. It's very, very important right now. I'm really minimizing a lot of the things that, even though my calendar is really full, I'm trying to minimize the things that I commit to. But yeah, I'm booked through mid-March now, so I'm, clearly you can't contain everything. But the downtime is really important. If you feel those tears, let them come. I'm crying at the drop of the hat at silly, silly things. But also I'm crying at beauty. I'm crying at, seeing somebody do something really gracious, or seeing somebody do something that's just so amazing. Like even listening to to the classical music station here in the morning, I'm just overcome by humans can create such beauty. And it's not in comparison to the awful things that we can do. It's just an appreciation for that. And that can bring me to tears. So I think that everything is kind of on the table right now. And I mentioned to Elsie before we got started that Saturn and Pluto, when they come together, often bring up situations that feel like they're outside of our control.
Yeah.
And so how do we deal with that? How do we deal with that? Life is full of those situations. And, the ultimate result, Saturn is about personal authority and integrity, and Pluto is ultimately about personal empowerment and finding our mission, our path, our purpose on the planet. And so we can also look at, kind of the barrage that we're dealing with as having those ultimate purposes. And that's something else that we were talking about before we came online, Elsie, that now I've lost it. So do you have any thoughts right now?
Yes. I'm glad, Pam, that you used the word grief, because that's exactly what I've been experiencing. And a lot of things from the past have just kind of flown by my awareness. And also at the same time, what you experience, if something, a song or some other memory comes up, just brings tears of absolute joy and appreciation. I also have had a couple of aha moments where I really saw something that I didn't see about myself before, and it was a big help. So it has brought many different things, but it just seems that everything is happening so quickly. And what you mentioned with self-care, I've been trying very hard to keep that in mind. And people that I haven't heard from in a while have called, need help. So it's just been a time where everyone seems to be experiencing different emotions at a very rapid pace.
Yeah, I agree with that. And like I said, I do think that's related to the eclipses, especially this last lunar eclipse, because it was so wound into the Saturn-Pluto alignment. And just thinking astrologically now, so we have the moon, which represents emotions, and at that lunar eclipse, which is a full moon, a lunar eclipse is always a full moon, that moon was opposite all of these planets in Capricorn. And so you could take those one at a time and it would be a big deal. But you take the moon over here, our emotional well-being, kind of trying to hold its own with all of this huge energy in Capricorn, and that is very emotionally unsettling. And then even just taking, like, if we were looking at the moon opposite Pluto. So an opposition is just when planets are 180 degrees apart. on the zodiac circle. One of the hallmarks of any time we get Pluto and the moon together are extreme emotions, intense emotions, emotions bigger than ever. It's that, it's the depth and the intensity that Pluto often brings out. And so, I'm sorry, I just got a message about something on my computer. I don't know what it said. I think it said my battery's low. This would be great. Hold on. Okay, it just got unplugged. So I love that they give you warnings. I cannot remember what I was saying. Oh, talking about the Saturn-Pluto thing. And then if you take the moon opposite. Okay, can you still hear me, Elsie? Because my...
Yes, sure,
okay.
I can hear you.
Okay, it just rebooted. Then you take the singleton of the moon opposite Saturn, and you get those two planets together, and it can bring out sadness. It can bring out a sense of loneliness. It feels like, kind of, I have to do it all myself. There's that piece of it too. So we've got all of this mushed up together and amplified. And so of course it's big stuff. I think looking at the higher purposes of this with Pluto has a big role in a process of transformation. And we know that as we release emotions, whether it's laughter or tears, something shifts inside of us. And so Pluto is kind of, in my mind, Pluto is bringing up a lot of intense emotions, maybe that hadn't been processed before, that now need to be processed because we're really clearing the way for a new beginning. And that is where we're going.
Well, Pam, we also have a new beginning on Friday with the new moon.
Right.
And so how will that play into this mix that we're experiencing?
So yeah, it's a new moon and it's in Aquarius. And Aquarius is progressive and thinks outside the box and kind of new agey. That's probably an outdated term at this point, but it's really helping us tap into our intuition, helps us have those aha moments like the one that you mentioned. That's a very Aquarian thing. And the sun went into Aquarius today. So it's kind of opening up some new possibilities, thinking of new solutions, all of that. So the new moon will be in Aquarius, so that energy is amplified. But then, as a part of the new moon chart, at the time that the sun and moon align for the new moon, we have Uranus 90 degrees away from them. So that means that they're in square aspect. Uranus is square the sun and the moon. And that means there's a challenge going on. It's a challenge to look at things in a more Uranian way, you might say. So Uranus is very forward thinking. It doesn't want us to stay the same. It wants us to keep moving forward. It wants us to break out of patterns. So you think about all of those compound words that start with the word break. So we have breakthroughs, we have breakdowns, we have breakouts, we have breakups, we have breakaways. So there's that kind of energy about this. Uranus, it's called the god of chaos because as human beings, we're kind of habitual and we don't change something unless we really need to in some way. And so Uranus can feel disruptive because it's all about change and especially breaking us out of old patterns. Part of what can also happen with Uranus, especially because Uranus right now is in Taurus. Taurus is an earth sign. I'm not predicting a big earthquake, but it's that kind of shakeup, whether it's literal or figurative, kind of feeling like the ground is not quite solid beneath our feet, so that we have to think about something in a new way. So something as simple as I'm embarrassed to say, but I backed into the garage door yesterday. And so I'm having to, first of all, get a new garage door, but I'm also now realizing, okay, from now on, I'm backing into the garage. So I'm really aware when the garage door is all the way up and I'm not, jumping the gun. But I was doing that today. I was backing in and I was all of a sudden aware, this is making me turn my neck a different way. This is making me, the ruts in my driveway, it's a gravel drive. So the ruts are going to have to change because I'm not just pulling out and going this way. I'm backing up. So it was kind of symbolic. And so I think if we can look at it that way, and if unexpected things happen, to say, oh, this is really meant to shift me from the pattern, even if it's just that I do the same thing every day or get up at the same time every morning. Because the other piece of Uranus, which is really cool, is about awakening to insights. The higher vibration of Uranus is about higher mind, divine mind. And so that's why it's all about tapping into our intuition and receiving insights, because it's got that connotation as well. But we're less open to those kind of insights and aha moments if we're just doing the same thing every day and our head is down and we're following the same rut. It's when we have to take a detour and all of a sudden we're looking at a new landscape or something like that, something fires in our brains in a new way. So I think we can look at it, especially this new moon coming up, as being a part of that process for each of us, wherever we're needing to make a shift, wherever we're needing just a little bit of a jolt, to move us out of places that weren't bad necessarily, but just to open us up to new ways of moving through our lives.
So, Pam, I would like to offer an exercise that we can all do where we can bring in the new, push out the old. We may have done this before, but I'll take us through it really simply. So, everybody, if you just bring your arms up over your head, you're going to cross over. You're going to weave that figure 8. And as you do, you're going to bring in the new, push out the old. Over the chest, bring in the new, push out the old. Over the solar plexus, bring in the new, push out the old. And now gather open palms behind you and just throw all that old energy up over you. One more time, bring in the new, push out the old. Bring in the new, push out the old. Bring in the new, push out the old. Open palms behind you. This time, come to your shoulders and push the old all the way out.
Great.
How does that feel? That should get us ready for this full new moon on Friday.
Yeah,
So,
that felt very nice. Thank you.
yeah. Great. So, Pam, I think it's really helpful what you said about not doing the same thing every day. One of the things that we do is resist change. There's an old Hebrew proverb that says, change happens within an instant. It's the resistance to change that can take a lifetime.
That's very good.
Yeah. So how about any last words, because we're close to January 30th, everyone, where we're gonna, Pam is going to be doing her 6-month astrological guidance and update for us. And if you haven't registered, I have the link up there. So Pam, take it away for ending our little chit chat tonight.
Sure. So, as I kind of mentioned earlier, what's amazing to me is how much has happened since the beginning of the year. Mm-hmm. As we start the webinar, I am going to look back over January. I'm not going to spend a lot of time there, but as you get if you register for the class, you'll get calendars with the astrological aspects, and I'm including January and then all the way through June. But I'm including January because I just want to reflect on how much has been going on and to give us that awareness that we're not making it up. And yes, there is a lot. So Elsie likes this, but on the crucial days, I put these little curly Q things that maybe they are tornadoes or something like that, but the little curly Qs to let us know that this is a big energy day. And there are just so many of them in January. Good news is that the rest of the year, we'll have plenty of to talk about, but none of them are as dense as January. So in the class, I am going to start out with that overview, the review of January. Then I'm going to talk in the bigger scheme of things, particularly about Jupiter aligning with Pluto. So that's going to happen 3 times over the coming year. So we'll look at the dates when that's going to happen. And it's especially important to keep in our minds what's been going on in January, because Jupiter brings our attention back to those issues or helps us see them in a new way. So we're going to look more deeply at that. Another exciting thing that's going to happen in the next 6 months is that Saturn is going to move into a new sign. So it's been in Capricorn for a little over 2 years, and it's now going to move into Aquarius. It'll move back out because it's going to go retrograde, and then it'll go back in. But that's a shift, and so we want to look at what that means, how that's going to look. And then the other thing that I think is very interesting, cool, exciting is the asteroid Pallas Athena. So she is the goddess of wisdom, goddess of healing. She's quite powerful, and she is going to be involved every single time Jupiter and Pluto align. So to me, that brings, first of all, a feminine perspective, a strength, a creativity, a wisdom to the whole process. So I am going to explore that more, what that might look like, and I just feel very hopeful about that. And we are calling this is phase 3. This webinar covers phase 3. So this is a 2-year process that started in the beginning of 2019, and we're entering phase 3 now. And then this is the 2-year process ends at the end of 2020. And I'll give a little bit of a heads up about what that means too.
So thanks, Pam. Everyone, I will have the link there Thursday, January 30th. And Pam does a beautiful PowerPoint slideshow. And of course, you'll have all the calendars. Just a reminder, everything you receive about the webinar will come from Eventbrite. So if you're missing something, check your spam box. Make sure you have Eventbrite listed there. Pam, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks, Elsie.
I always love talking to you about the next astrological happenings around us.
Good to talk with you, Elsie. Thank you.
Yeah. So good night, everyone. This is Elsie Kerns, your Chaos to Clarity coach. And we'll have this up on Facebook. Feel free to pass it around and share it with others. Have a good night, everyone.
Good night.